Hey, good morning, everybody. We're in John chapter 12 today, and there is a lot going on in John chapter 12, and so much of it is a response to what took place in John chapter 11 when Jesus performed the miracle of raising Lazarus from the dead. And a miracle like this had evoked lots and lots of different responses. The first response we see is in the first set of verses is Mary. Mary was Lazarus' sister, and as you might expect, Mary was very grateful for what Jesus had done, and so much so that she was worshiping him in an amazing way. She purchased very expensive perfume and anointed Jesus with it. And she took her own hair and wiped off the excess with her hair. And she was giving everything. She was willing to give herself sacrificially in obedience to Jesus. And she was all in with her worship. Now, the second person is, in this very same set of verses, is Judas. Of course, Judas was one of the 12, but he was also very put off by the amount of money that Mary spent on that perfume. And he makes a pious statement where he says, "Do you know how many poor people we could have fed with that?" But John lets us know that Judas, in fact, was being very dishonest, disingenuous with that statement. In fact, he didn't care about the poor. He just wanted access to that money because he was the treasurer of their little group, and he had been stealing from that treasury. And of course, we know that Judas lived dishonestly, and his dishonesty later brought him to destruction. Now, the next people that we see are the crowd at Palm Sunday. Now, this was interesting because this is a group of people who, when hearing about Lazarus' resurrection, they said, "Wow, this Jesus is amazing. He could be the Messiah that is going to be the political ruler that helps us overthrow Rome." And so we're going to shout, "Hosanna, Hosanna, save us from Rome." Save us from Rome, politically speaking, that is. And political freedom is what they've been dreaming about. But of course, we know that Jesus didn't come as a political general. He came and he didn't fit their expectation. So when they find that out, this crowd quickly flips and they become the ones that shout, "Crucify him, crucify him." We hope that one day members of this crowd realize what Jesus came to do. But in this case, this was a very two-faced crowd. In the very next section, we find John tells us that some Greek people come to Philip and Andrew, and they say, "We want to meet Jesus. We want to know about Jesus." And so Philip and Andrew take them to Jesus. They spend personal time with Jesus, and Jesus explains to them what it means to be a follower of his. And you know what? I admire Philip and Andrew in a big way because they did not understand everything for certain. The disciples were actually pretty confused still at this point, yet they knew that Jesus was unique and he was worth following. And they said, "Come on, let's go talk to Jesus together." Now, there's also a group of people towards the middle of this particular of this chapter that John kind of calls the people in general. Let's look at verse 37. It says, but despite all the miraculous signs Jesus had done, most of the people still did not believe in him." Skipping to verse 42, it says, "Many people did believe in him, however, including some of the Jewish leaders. But they wouldn't admit it for fear that the Pharisees would expel them from the synagogue, for they loved human praise more than the praise of God." You know, in that day and age and in our day and age, it takes courage to follow Jesus. And it takes humility too. It's saying, "Jesus, you know what? I don't understand it all. Jesus, I can't, but you can." And there are so many ways that people responded in Jesus' day. And you know, those same ways are true today too. People still respond to him today. I think that we find ourselves we can probably find ourselves in all of these examples. Listen to the end of the chapter when Jesus is pleading with the people. We pick up in verse 44. It says, Jesus shouted to the crowds, "If you trust me, you are trusting not only in me, but also God who sent me. For when you see me, you are seeing the one who sent me. I have come as a light to shine in this dark world, so that all who put their trust in me will no longer remain in the dark. I will not judge those who hear me, but don't obey me. For I have come to save the world and not to judge it." Now, that's a very clear invitation to every single one of us. Jesus says, trust me. Trust me. I am the light that shines in this dark world. It brings me back, I should say, to John's words in John chapter 1, where John describes Jesus, and he says this. He says, "He is the light that shines in the darkness, and the darkness can never extinguish it." In verse 10, he goes on and says, "He came into the very world that he created, but the world didn't recognize him. He came to his own people, and even they rejected him. But to all who believed him and accepted him, he gave the right to become the children of God." The darkness of this world is constantly inviting us to define our lives in our own terms, or to live for our own for ourselves, or even to live for the praise of others. But those will all end in destruction. And Jesus invites us to trust him, to go all in on him, to join in him with something much bigger than ourselves. Something much bigger that makes that is living for God. He is the light of the world, and he is worth following. Have an amazing day.
If these devotional videos are helpful to you, subscribe to our channel and click the notification button so you know when we post a new video. And of course, please share them with others.